I'm Brian Westbrook with GeekWire Studios. Here at AWS reInvent, a big topic is generative AI. I'm very excited to have a thought leader in this space, PwC's Managing Director of the US Consulting Service, Alex Cherones. Alex, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me, Brian.
We have a lot to get to today, but I want to first give the audience a little bit of backstory about you and your journey into this space.
Terrific. So a little bit about myself. As you said, my name's Alex Cherones. I'm Managing Director with PwC. My specific area of focus is cybersecurity and the application of generative AI, as well as technology, where those kind of crossroads meet. That is my kind of subject matter and my focus area on a daily basis.
Honing in on security, what does Gen AI mean for the future of security?
The application of generative AI in security is massive. Right now, we are at an inflection point for us, not only as kind of a civilization, but also as an industry in security. So think about some of the challenges that we've had historically. A lot of different systems have assembled over the years. The average enterprise has over 70 different security applications. And you think about that and you say, well, that's a whole heck of a lot. How do you address all those different applications and systems that are firing important information on a regular basis? Well, historically, the answer has always been, how do we throw more humans at the situation to answer the call? But that's not a reasonable approach anymore. So we work and we live in a negative unemployment industry. So think about that just for a second. There aren't enough people to fill the roles to do the jobs. And as technology continues to move forward, if we're not thoughtful about how we solve that in an automated fashion and start making humans be smarter and more efficient in the way that they operate these systems, then we'll continue down that same course. So for us, that's a big one right there, is making sure that we're able to automate and enhance the performance of the humans behind all this. The second piece is having the ability now to start having broad visibility and actions that are going to happen a lot faster. So kind of juxtapose that in yesteryear, an alert would fire and you'd have to be looking at that, or you'd be notified and then you'd start an investigation. Now with the application of generative AI, you have the opportunity to go and have a lot of that actually knocked out before it even gets to a person. And in some cases, it's even remediated, a threat is remediated without any personal intervention. So when I talk about an inflection point, it's massive for us right now.
So you mentioned 70 different security applications. That stuck out to me because as an IT professional myself, I remember having all of those applications.
Sure.
One of the ways that PwC is bringing those together is through the use of a fusion center. Now, fusion center sounds like a bit of a flux capacitor. It sounds a little bit complicated. Walk us through what is a fusion center and how is that differentiating?
Yep, so our approach to technology and fusion centers in the application of cybersecurity is really a couple-fold. About a year and a half ago in our relationship with AWS, we said, hey, there's a huge opportunity to address a challenge that's been nagging at us as security professionals for decades. And that is the normalization of data sets. And so in years past, what we had to do was cobble together those data from those 70 different systems, make them all look the same, and normalize that data. And then we're able to start applying analytics and gleaning insights from what's happening across those disparate data sources and applications. So from an AWS perspective, we said, hey, there's an opportunity here, and AWS sees the opportunity to create what is now called Amazon Security Lake. And Amazon Security Lake effectively acts as that data repository for a variety of different security providers to put their data in a consolidated and normalized format, that being OCSF, Open Cybersecurity Schema Framework. And the idea behind that is if everything's already normalized and ready to go, you get to insights and you get to action a lot faster. So that's the first piece. And we said as PwC, we think this is a fantastic opportunity. Thank you for putting it together, AWS. Here's how we can help you. Everybody would have to build their own infrastructure around Security Lake to make sure that they're able to start actioning against it, start having visibility on it, and having the opportunity to actually use the data sets that are in Security Lake. So we said, we'll go ahead and build this in an automated fashion around Security Lake for our clients and accelerate the time to useful insights as a response to that. The other big piece from a Fusion perspective is think about it just from a namesake. So I tried to draw parallels to a post 9/11 era. And so we had intelligence agencies, we had first responders who weren't really talking together in an effective and efficient way. And the same is true now, especially in cybersecurity. We want to knock those communication silos down.
Right.
We want to tear them down and we want to bring that all under one roof. So you start having the ease of communication across organizations that historically were independent of one another. So that's the other big key piece there. And then obviously the application of generative AI helps us do that in an efficient, effective manner as quickly as possible.
So it kind of sounds like you're tearing down the walls, you're making the communication seamless between these otherwise disparate organizations, whether that be cybersecurity, whether it be threat protection, operations, right? All of these different organizations, you're making it so they can all talk to each other.
That's right.
Then you're giving them a common data set with OCFS to be able to kind of like, okay, now your data is compatible because frankly, otherwise, what are you doing?
Right.
What do you do after that? How do you then action that data? And tell me a little bit more about how Gen AI, you built the platform, you built a foundation, now I want to see the results, now I want to see the operational efficiencies, threat protection,
you got it.
Cost savings.
Great questions there. So the first piece through the lens of Fusion Center from PwC is also focused on integration, making sure that this platform is as extensible as possible. So if you have 70 different applications for security only, it gets a little dicey. How do you integrate with those? And the response that no one wants to hear nowadays is rip and replace. And so having the ability to abstract all of the threat detection, all of the threat hunting, all of the alerting, all of that functionality into other systems is one of the ways that we do that. So while we offer something as basic and straightforward as a workflow management solution, there are 800-pound gorillas out there in that space that the vast majority already have subscriptions to, and they've tweaked and they've tuned them over the years to make sure that it's exactly how they want it. Instead of us coming and saying, hey, let's pull that out and use this, we say, we'll integrate with that today. So that's one big piece. Another big piece from a generative AI perspective is having the ability to go do investigations. Think about it as an assistant to a security operations analyst. And so in years past, you would take a lot of training, years and years of experience to get to the point that individual be knowledgeable and productive enough on their own to go do all these things. Now with the introduction of generative AI, in a couple different foundational models, not just focusing on large language models, but also generative and image-based foundational models, our ability then is skyrockets. So think about this through this use case. I'm a newbie, and I'm sitting in my tier 1 SOC analyst role, and I'm saying, hey, I need to understand what happens. I see this alert. I usually would go talk to my friends that I'm working with. They would coach me if they're a little bit more, tenured, and they'll walk me through what to do. And then that takes, rinse and repeat for a long period of time to get very comfortable with it. In the application of generative AI, all of a sudden I can go ask this assistant to do an investigation on my behalf and tell me what steps to take to remediate a threat, even as a newbie into the role. And then you zoom out, the same thing exists from a manager or a CXO level to have that visibility and operational insight across the entire digital estate.
You mentioned earlier negative unemployment. Is generative AI replacing the need for these professionals or augmenting the need for those professionals?
I think it's augmenting the need. Strictly through a security lens, I'll talk about the fact that it's helping us all be better and more efficient at our jobs. If the application of generative AI allows us to be faster and more effective, then that skills gap shortens.
Okay.
The unemployment gap also will go down, at least in work backload for some period of time, and allows us to be better and more effective. So that's my opinion. That's what we're seeing early on here in the security space.
Let's take just a side tangent to brag for just a moment.
Sure.
We know that PwC was named a leader in the IDC marketplace, MarketScape, Worldwide Cybersecurity Risk Management Services 2023. Great accomplishment. First of all, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
How did this come to be?
This came to be over a whole variety of years of making sure that we're doing the right thing. So historically, as you know, PwC is and is the very best when it comes to professional services. through the lens of cybersecurity, we've assembled a variety of different specializations worldwide to make sure that we're able to address a variety of different things, whether it's regulatory in nature, whether it's technology in nature, or if it's security in nature. Having the ability and breadth to address all of these things is imperative for us to do that. With the addition and acceleration of different technologies like the Fusion Center as well as others, we've been able to compete effectively in the marketplace and help our clients to get to a good state as quickly as possible, whereas a lot of our peers are still struggling to get the technology and accelerators in place to allow the client to move quickly and efficiently in their security journey. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And without starting all over, without ripping everything out and saying we're going to build from the ground zero,
right.
Which isn't always practical, I imagine.
It's not practical at all. We live in an era where budgets are, continuing to be tight, right? And while we see security budgets tend to grow a little bit, there's a lot more focus on where those dollars are going and making sure that they're being spent effectively. We see a lot of the times folks have 5 different tool sets that do the exact same thing. So us having, for example, again, the Fusion Center, have the visibility to say a lot of the data are coming off of these systems are the exact same thing. That gives a line of sight for our clients to start cost savings measures and making sure they're taking unnecessary costs out of the business.
Sometimes it's a buzzword, but it sounds like there's a lot of synergies there between departments with the data combining with the conversations that are happening.
That's right.
It sounds like PwC is really at the forefront of a lot of the foundation and helping the customers make this journey easier and take it to the next level. I want to talk about the future. What keeps you as a cybersecurity professional, what keeps you as someone watching over this up at night? What is next? What's coming?
I think what's coming is technology is a tool, right? And tools could be used for a variety of purposes. Some of them are very constructive in nature,
okay,
and some of them can be very destructive in nature. And so from where I sit, one of the big things that keeps me up at night is the use of these technologies for nefarious ends. Mm-hmm. And I think we're starting to see that in our space specifically. It's still in its nascent days, so a lot of the things that we're seeing from a black hat perspective are not probably as evolved as we're going to see in the years and months to come. But for example, using generative AI to write malware, using it to launch exploits, it's not been done, at least that we're aware of, and this one will age really well, by the way. Everyone's gonna laugh at it. I'm like, I know, that was a good one. But at least where we are right now is a moment in time. That's a big concern of mine, and I think that's a very real threat. It's a clear and present danger that's going to be coming up very soon.
Speaking of clear and present danger, some of the things that you're alluding to here remind me of a 1991 movie. Do you feel like PwC is ever going to buy Skynet and maybe help create the T-1000, or are you going to stay on the positive end of things?
I'd like to think that we're going to stay on the positive end of things. Part of our entire generative AI practice, not just in security, is also focused on the ethical application of these things, right? So we don't want anybody to go off to do anything negative or problematic.
Right.
We want to keep it, in the guidelines. And we have frameworks and we have the methodology to go help clients to make sure that it's done in an effective way and making sure that biases are mitigated or altogether thrown out, to making sure that these things are working for good for all of society. We don't need the T-1000 coming down and having to call Arnold out of retirement to come save us from the situation. We need to make sure that we're addressing this in an effective way from the get-go.
If you had talking about Skynet and T-1000 on your bingo card today, I think we can check that one right off the list. Alex Cherones, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Brian.
Director, PwC's U.S. Consulting Service, an exciting conversation. We've got much more. Thanks for watching.